What is up, Cubes fam? Cubes, I'm back with you. And welcome back to another kind of pre-recorded episode of content. This probably will go with Dungeons & Dragons and Space Shuttles, just because I've got some no audio footage recorded that I can slap this over the top of. So this is something that eventually I want to get into on the podcast. But I'm going to sort of talk about my own views about some stuff, since I've been having difficulty arranging getting anybody else on the podcast. This is something I kind of really want to talk to other people about as far as that goes. But so what I'm going to talk about today is the concept of feasible life. And I'm going to go through different iterations of this, where I am going to pointedly discuss different specific groups of things, like for instance, I don't know, dragons, or phoenixes, or something like that. Just to sort of, it's a fun little thing, and it's something that interests me quite a bit. So for those of you who don't maybe know what I mean when I say feasible life, I'm going to take the ideas of things that we've seen in fiction and in legend, which are not always the same thing, by the way. There are plenty of legends that turn out to be some amount true, so for all intents and purposes, I'm going to treat them differently. But yet somewhat similar, because with legends, things can deteriorate over time. Something to the extent of what might be in a legend might be true, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's something equivalent to, say, the Balrog from Lord of the Rings. Although that's going to be a completely different topic, subject area. I will discuss things of supernatural origins as well, but in this case, I want to talk about life that could exist, or life that might have existed. Obviously, without too much evidence, it's hard to tell as far as what might have existed, but also to sort of shoot the breeze about what life could also be out elsewhere in the universe. And today I wanted to take a very special highlight to discuss, which is the concept of things like Ents. For those of you who don't know what an Ent is, basically it is a tree-like entity that has evolved to be somewhat humanoid, mobile, able to speak. Obviously, in fiction, one of the most notable ones that comes to mind immediately for me is Lord of the Rings, where in Lord of the Rings they were spirits of the forest born to protect the trees from the mortals of Middle-earth. So there is that origin. There's also other supernatural. Some of these things, like the Ents, for example, will overlap into the supernatural discussions I'll have. Because, for instance, in Druid culture, there's some mentions of the spirits of the forests. And those are more supposed to be actual spirits taking post in sacred oak trees and waking them up to be able to do such things, not a thing of evolution. But I do want to attack this from the science side, that there is a possibility, millions of years from now, of tree-like plants taking an evolutionary leap. Obviously, there'll have to be some reason for that leap. But it is not outside of the realm of possibility. We see plants that exist today that are self-aware enough and complex enough to move themselves, to defend themselves, and to, even go so far as to become carnivorous. I almost said carnistic, and then I almost said carnival before I became carnivorous. I don't know why I can't speak today. So it stands to reason that even before trees, those plants might take that next step. As scary as it is to think of a Venus flytrap that's capable of scurrying around after you like a face hugger, it is a possibility. I mean, obviously, conditions would have to be met to require that. But also, elsewhere in the universe, also could exist things like that, where the plants had to learn to survive for some reason. It's very, very plausible. So, for those of you who don't know, because I know about a bit about dendrology, which is the study of trees, as well as just plant stuff in general. I thought about following some higher education in botany for a while. I didn't end up doing it, but I know people who have higher education in botanical stuff as well. And so I know a lot about the biology of plants. And a lot of people don't realize that plants have a circulatory system. They do not generally have centralized organs like us. Some do have centralized things that we could consider organs if we were open-minded enough about it. For instance, areas where seed pods are developed, areas where nectar is produced, stuff like that, could be compared to places like the reproductive system or the liver. Most plants distribute the duties that need carried out throughout the plant. But we can have a living organism that doesn't necessarily have to have a centralized nervous system. We see that in sea life. I believe the sea cucumber is one, maybe. I think the jellyfish probably counts among that as well. And that is something that, although is unique, is not unheard of. So we have evidence of life as we know it on Earth that can fall into that category. So there's no reason why plants couldn't evolve something similar. But yeah, where we push blood through our veins, sap, nectar, what have you, depending on the plant, goes through the veins carrying water through the plant and other nutrients as well. So it does very much act somewhat like blood for us. The main thing blood carries is nutrients that we absorb into our body and oxygen to dispersion throughout the body. But yeah, so they have a circulatory system, and on the subject closer to the line of how Ents can walk and talk. Again, with things like the Venus flytrap, we've seen a certain amount of self-awareness in plants. So even without a centralized nervous system, who is to say that those neurons can't form complex connections and still be able to speak to each other? Yes, they're not the kind of things that we consider like our neurons, because the cells are made up of different stuff. But that doesn't necessarily mean they can't act the same. We've certainly seen plenty of evidence that plants can react negatively to damage, so that can be considered that they feel pain. Obviously, to be able to speak, they would have to evolve some sort of method of basically having a voice box, which wouldn't probably be necessary for them. So maybe they would never necessarily speak with us. Um, Perhaps there could be a day when they did, but they'd probably gain the ability to move and to have actions beyond just eating a bird that lands on them, sort of thing, um, before that point in time will come. Just like with human beings, we had unspoken language for thousands of years before we learned to speak or even to write. I think writing came much later than speaking, if I remember correctly, at least as far as we know today. So they could develop culture and sort of probably tribal sort of arrangement, because that tended to be what we did early on in our development. Although that doesn't mean it's necessarily true if Ents were to develop on Earth in the future, because we anthropomorphize a lot. Just because we do something doesn't mean another species needs to do it in order to reach a similar point in their evolution. And that's something I also want to discuss later on, because I'm probably going to save it until I can get somebody on to discuss it, because I do want to talk about the evolutionary state of chimps and stuff, because I think we anthropomorphize that a little too much, and there might be certain things that we don't consider could go differently, that could also lead them to a similar point in evolution as our early ancestors. But yeah, there's definitely evidence to suggest that there's a lot of plants that, although we anthropomorphize them with our emotions, that you could say fear damage or death, they, so obviously there's a lot of plants that don't do this, but there are some plants out there that will curl away, like their leaves will sort of like shrink up to try to protect them from fire nearby or heat, it says heat nearby. They have rest states. We see this with sunflowers that will sort of droop their petals across their, I don't remember what the big bit in the middle is called. And also they follow the sun with some faces as well. I guess the face is the way that they call it. But they'll go into a rest period, and they also go into a hibernation period for a lot of plants, because they'll shut down for the winter. They'll slow their production of things, slow the passage of water through their veins. They'll revert to drawing nutrients solely from the ground instead of relying on other creatures to bring it to them. There's a lot of things to suggest that they're already a lot further down the evolutionary path than we think. Just because in the couple billion years that vegetation has been on planet Earth, it hasn't had to evolve too much, doesn't mean that it isn't going to keep evolving. What if we take trees from Earth to an alien planet and they get saturated with radiation that allows for them to make another leap forward? And plants have a form of DNA too. A lot of people don't realize that. It's much different from ours. The amino acids are not the same. Some of them probably are, but I'm pretty sure some of them aren't. Their molecular makeup is probably quite a bit different from ours. I know their cellular makeup tends to be. We don't have chlorophyll in our cells generally, and a lot of plant cells do. But even the way that we tend to use energy from food to grow actually can apply to plants as well. Plants will break down nutrients to form the hydrocarbons, and that's why they need water, that form the cellulose that is like the main thing of a plant. So that's something a lot of people don't know. So in theory, like with human evolution, with intense radiation, there's mutation. So we don't think of it like that mainly. We don't think of it as we have evolved because of exposure to radiation, but exposure over time to what solar radiation made it into Earth's atmosphere brought about a lot of mutations that led to the development of complex life on the planet. So, in theory, say we took trees and left them on an alien world, and then they got saturated with higher levels of radiation than they were used to, then mutations could occur. And yes, they could die out. Obviously, mutations due to radiation are a lot less likely to produce a large, I hate to use the phrase breeding stock, with the successful mutation. And even so, those mutations may not always be good. A lot of our evolutionary mutations came from situational changes, the bodies of our ancestors adapting to a new situation, and after a very long period of time, the people who survived were the people with those adaptations to their bodies, to their genomes, and therefore they were the breeding stock that introduced the next generation, and so we kept those mutations. I might do a whole separate conversation about genetics as well, because there's a lot of people who don't really know how passing things on work. So maybe that might be something I cover as well. But yeah, and they would be a successful species to come about. I mean, they get a lot of their food from the sun, and although we get vitamins from the sun too, we can't flourish on it the way they do. The sun is one of the main sources of the energy that they use to grow. Chlorophyll has a chemical reaction when exposed to sunlight. So that is a distinct evolutionary advantage. Now, the mobility of them would probably be something that would have to be pretty serious in order to bring about, like a serious flood or something. I mean, there is the distinct possibility that on their own, regardless of cataclysmic events, they may just one day gain a little bit more control over their mobility. But again, if Ents were to evolve on the Earth, assuming that they didn't exist before, and who knows, maybe they did and were hunted to extinction. There's not really a way to tell, because all we would probably find is confusing remnants of dead trees. So there's really not a way to tell if they were real. Because in all likelihood, if they were real and hunted out, they likely would have been burned or made into other things because they're made of wood. So that's a thing to be considered as well. But if they did evolve, let's say if they did evolve again, because maybe they were real, I'll grant that. So let's say a new generation of them were to evolve. It would probably take a few million years to happen. Because right now, the trees that we see right now, as far as we can tell, are nowhere near that step. But I think, in my opinion, and I'll try to discuss this in a multiplayer thing as well, or in a multi-person podcast as well, that they are very feasible. Uh, yeah, you guys can disagree with me. By all means, put your opinions and whether or not you agree. Be polite to me and each other, but this is for discussion. This is just shooting the breeze for shits and giggles. Um, but I'd love to hear your guys' opinions on these sorts of things. And if you guys want to actually join the live discussion, you guys can join the server that I'm playing Dungeons, Dragons, and Space Shuttles on. It's on a public network. It's APOC Gaming Network. Their website just changed, so I think I'll have to fetch that. But I'll try to start putting it in all the APOC stuff that's the website. But yeah, if you guys find me on there and are like, hey, I really like your video, I want to discuss, I can actually hop in the general voice chat on the APOC Discord server and have a live discussion there and then. I'll start recording and everything, if I'm not already, and be happy to hash some of that out, as long as everybody's polite to each other. I don't want to get anybody kicked off the server because they were angrily disagreeing with me. I'm entitled to my opinions, and you're entitled to yours. But yeah, so that's the thing. And also, on a side note, I do want to let you guys know I'm setting up the fan server, I guess you could say, on Discord, to be ready hopefully by July 1st. I'm trying to figure out welcome bots and stuff, and I haven't had a lot of time to dedicate to it right now. So I'm hopefully going to have that up by July 1st. I've sorted out some scheduling stuff, and I've been trying to put up some old footage to give me some time to record some new footage, and also doing this to try to give me some time to record some new footage. I prefer to do the stuff while I'm playing, but lately it's been one thing or another. I've been dealing with depression issues, and I've been dealing with chaos at home, and trauma, all sorts of stuff. And it's actually pretty rough for me today. I'm trying to push my shell on the depression kicking my butt today, because today is the second anniversary of my mom's passing. So trying to kick back and actually put out something I want to talk about. I've been getting really depressed because I've been having difficulties finding the chance to record, and so I've been getting depressed because I'm depressed and I don't want to record. Which is kind of annoying. It's just a vicious cycle where I want to record, but I don't know what I want to talk about, or I don't feel like it at that moment, and then I miss my opportunity to record, and then I'm like, I was just bummed I couldn't record. I've got a couple people that I'm talking to that I haven't put out any content with before. One of them I haven't actually played anything with before, that I remember anyway, and definitely never on YouTube. So that'll be fun. An old friend that I knew in high school, or even middle school maybe. I have to actually look at the yearbook and remember. But somebody I've known for a long time, but I kind of fell out with for a while. So hopefully that'll be a thing that happens soon, and that'll be fun. And so I've got a couple announcements. I think I'm done with the Pheasable life forms discussion. So if you guys want to tune out, that's fine. But I have a couple announcements that I want to make. One is that I'm working on a specialized UHC mod pack, separate from the Cubecraft UHC that we're going to do. Cubecraft UHC will be done in the arena I have built on CubeCraft. However, I've been working on a mod pack for a modified UHC. Um, so throw in a lot of cool little things, but not breaking from the mostly vanilla plus feeling of UHC. A lot of it's adds in extra world gen, so it makes it more hazardous. Adds in extra food stuff, so it's easier to not starve. Stuff like that. And my hope is by next year to have regular, like monthly events where I make that pack public and invite you guys, the viewers, as well as select cubes crafters and other friends that might want to join in to play against each other. And who knows, maybe I might come up with some sort of reward system for that. Maybe the winner gets a free t-shirt. Oh, I should announce that because that's going to be happening soon. I'm designing shirts right now, so I'm going to work on getting a merch store set up before long. And I've got 3 shirts already brainstormed up. I just have to do the art for them. I'm doing a couple different versions and then also collaborating with Zane to see if he thinks I did a good enough job to do that. And then, so hopefully by like September, because things don't always go fast for me, those should be up. I might see about doing a couple other things as well, making socks or something. But I wanted to announce that I've got new people coming around. I wanted to announce that finally, because I've done everything that I can do to check on it, I have selected the title for the upcoming Transformers podcast that I'm going to be doing. I really, really want to tell the title, but I don't want anybody to take it yet until I try to get a trademark on it. So I'm going to hold off because I have to wait to hear back from Hasbro before I can trademark it. So that will be happening hopefully fairly soon. I know that the recording of episodes has not even begun yet because people are busy. But it's hopefully going to be really fun when that happens. But yeah. Do I have anything else I want to announce? I think I did once, but I don't remember now. So I hope you guys enjoyed. If you do, make sure to slap that like button and let me know that you did. Don't forget to support the channel and everything I do over on Patreon, patreon.com/CubesNLP. And if you guys don't want to subscribe to your Patreon, but you still want to support the channel, you can donate at streamlabs.com/CubesNLYT. That is CUBXENOYT. And the same, but with LP at the end for Patreon. And you guys probably already know that because you're watching this on the channel. Anyway, I will catch you guys later. Don't let Skeleton show them out. I'll see you in a second. Peace!